Imagine this, traveller, you weren't pulled here by chance. Something in the quiet geometry of the universe placed you in the path of a wandering object now hidden behind the sun. Today, the Rai Atlas drifts through its perihelion trial, a place where comets are forged or broken, where ice becomes breath, and secrets slip into light. Astronomers say it's harmless, yet this interstellar visitor once moved at 58 kilometers per second near Jupiter's orbit, a speed that whispered, "Outsider." What if this ancient relic used the sun's fire for something we were never meant to witness? What if the silence is the clue? Stay with me. Imagine this, traveller. Tonight the universe whispers again, not in language or symbols, but in the quiet drift of an object older than our sun, moving through darkness like a thought carried across eons. You find yourself here listening not because of chance, but because something in the quiet geometry of the cosmos placed you along its path. Your curiosity mirrors its trajectory. Your wonder meets its passage. So let your breath soften, let your mind loosen its grip, and allow me to guide you gently into this unfolding mystery. There is a principle in orbital mechanics that I have spent many silent nights contemplating. It echoes in the hum of observatory equipment, in the faint static of radio dishes, in the soft vibration of cooling metal beneath a star-soaked sky. It is called the Oerth effect, a simple yet profound idea first whispered by Hermann Oerth, a physicist from an era when rockets were dreams pressed into chalk dust. His insight still guides everything we send into space. He discovered that the most efficient way to change your speed among the planets is to fire your engines when you're already moving fastest. At perihelion, where an object swoops closest to the sun, even the slightest thrust becomes enormous. Energy responds to velocity squared. The faster you move, the more the universe amplifies your push. Humans borrowed this wisdom from nature. We accelerate using the sun. We brake using the sun. We slip between worlds by timing our engines to the rhythms of celestial motion. And now, as if reflecting some cosmic mirroring, 3i Atlas has entered the same decisive moment. Its Perihelion Test. Imagine it, listener. Not as a threat, but as a wanderer brushing the warm breath of the sun. At this moment in the story, the object is streaming through space at nearly 68 kilometers per second. That alone is enough to carry it back into the deep night between stars. But physics leaves room for another path. If something were to slow itself during this moment of greatest speed, if a subtle deceleration occurred, where the equations amplify every whisper of force, the object could shed enough momentum to be captured by our star. Instead of leaving forever, it could remain. This is not speculation about intention or design. It is simply the way the mathematics unfold. But mathematics becomes haunting when paired with timing. Just as 3i Atlas reached the perfect instant to alter its fate, it vanished behind the sun. The glare swept across its path like a curtain closing on the most important scene. Ground-based telescopes lost vision. Orbiting observatories were blinded by the same overwhelming light. For 8 quiet days, the object became invisible to every eye on Earth. Not because of secrecy, not because of meaning, simply because geometry had turned its face away from us. I know this kind of waiting well. There were nights when signals dipped behind a planet or a comet slipped into the sun's haze. Nights when the instruments fell silent and all I could do was breathe and wait. We humans dislike waiting. It reminds us of our fragility. It reminds us how little control we have in the immense architecture of space. Yet there is a strange peace inside this helplessness. The universe asks us to release our urgency and rest within uncertainty. So take a slow breath. The story is still just beginning. Astronomers have already traced the path of 3i Atlas back through time, following its arc beyond our planets and into the larger currents of the galaxy. Its trail points towards Sagittarius, toward the crowded and ancient regions near the galactic center, but its motion suggests that it came not from the flat spiral where our sun lives, but from the thick disk above and below that plane. This region is older, quieter, filled with stars that burned billions of years before Earth existed. If the object formed there, then it is a time capsule, older than our oceans, older than our continents, older even than the first sparks of life that appeared on our young world. Imagine an object forged in the frozen outskirts of an ancient star system, drifting through interstellar space for uncounted ages, surviving radiation collisions and emptiness, till by chance or alignment it passes through our sun's domain. No message, no roar, no declaration, just the silent glide of age itself. As 3i Atlas slips through its perihelion shadow, we cannot watch its engines if it has any. We cannot see its outgassing if it continues. We cannot measure its acceleration if it changes. We can only wait. And waiting traveller is its own form of listening. It is allowing the universe to speak at its own pace, not ours. It is accepting that some mysteries are not meant to be solved immediately, but observed quietly in their own unfolding. So rest here for a moment. Let your shoulders ease. Let your mind drift like dust illuminated by starlight. Tonight you are not lost in space. You are part of it. And whatever 3i Atlas reveals or conceals, you are safe to witness it from the quiet side of the cosmos. Some mysteries are meant to guide us, not answer us. Some silences are the universe thinking, and somewhere beyond our reach something ancient still moves. Sleep if you wish, traveller. The cosmos will keep watch. As we wait for 3i Atlas to emerge from behind the sun, the silence around it becomes its own kind of evidence. Not proof of purpose, not proof of danger, but proof of distance. In astronomy, distance is not just a measure of space, it is a measure of patience. It is the understanding that light itself needs time to reach us, that even the brightest truths travel slowly, and that knowledge is often delayed by the speed limit of the universe. The object is hidden now because the sun stands between us not as a guardian or a judge, but simply as a star doing what it has always done, burning, radiating, overwhelming our instruments with its fierce, unfiltered light. Somewhere beyond that light, 3i Atlas moves through temperatures no human hand could endure, through pressures and radiation fields that would tear our machines apart. Yet it continues forward unchanged in its long and lonely purpose, whatever that purpose may be. Some astronomers describe its motion as graceful, others as unnerving, but all agree on one thing: objects like this do not wander into our solar system often. In fact, statistically, the probability of such an interstellar visitor passing this close to the sun is roughly 1 in tens of thousands of years. And yet here it is now, drifting through the most violent region of its path while we sit blind and waiting. The human mind instinctively seeks stories in moments like this. We imagine omens, messages, signs. We listen for patterns in the static. But the universe is quieter than our imaginations. It operates on scales so large, so slow, so indifferent to our urgency, that its most extraordinary acts appear entirely natural. A comet brightens, a trajectory curves, a signal flickers once and never again. And while we stay awake wondering, the cosmos continues without pause. Still, there is a reason scientists call Perihelion a test. It is the place where objects reveal their true nature. If a comet is fragile, the sun will peel it open. If it is ancient, its chemistry will unravel. If it hides metals, gases, or secrets trapped beneath ice, they will pour outward in luminous streaks. The sun is not gentle. The sun exposes. And right now, in the glare where our instruments cannot follow 3i Atlas, is being examined by the only force old enough to understand it. And while we cannot see, we can predict. We can run simulations, trace heat through crystalline ice, calculate sublimation thresholds, model the stress fractures that ripple across a nucleus at extreme velocity. We can imagine how a relic from another star behaves under the pressure of our own. But imagining is not knowing. The truth drifts out of view, wrapped in radiation, wrapped in distance. There is something strangely comforting about that. Not knowing forces us to slow down. It asks us to breathe, to accept the pace of cosmic time. It invites us to observe without expectation, to let the story unfold at the universe's rhythm rather than our own. You, listener, are part of that rhythm now. Your thoughts are wandering the same way the comet wanders, searching gently, drifting between questions and the warm pull of rest. Some astronomers describe the object as a messenger, not because they believe it carries intent, but because its presence reminds us that the galaxy is not empty. It reminds us that our solar system is not a sealed chamber, but a waypoint on larger cosmic currents. Every interstellar object carries a lineage of worlds we will never see. Every grain of dust inside it was once illuminated by a different sun, perhaps a sun colder or older or brighter than ours. These objects are not intruders. They are travellers, just as we are travellers drifting through our own brief stretch of time. In this quiet moment with the comet hidden behind the sun, you might imagine it passing through a cathedral of fire, its surface glowing faintly as solar particles strike it like ancient chimes. You might imagine the darkness behind it stretching forever, a corridor of frozen silence leading back to the star that birthed it. And somewhere in that corridor, if you listen softly enough, you may feel the scale of your own existence shift gently. You may feel smaller, yes, but also connected to something that has no beginning and no end. The universe does not rush, it simply continues. And as 3i Atlas moves through the brightest and most dangerous moment of its journey, we wait on the other side with questions that float like dust in a sunbeam. Will it brighten? Will it fracture? Will it dim into nothing? Or will it emerge unchanged, gliding as silently as it arrived? For now, traveller, let the uncertainty soothe you. Let the unknowing wash over you like a tide. The universe has already decided the path this object will take. Rest your thoughts. The story is still unfolding, and the cosmos is not finished speaking. Far beyond the reach of our senses, where the solar wind thins into a ghostly tide, the object continues its passage, carrying with it the quiet weight of time. As it moves, the sun's radiation sculpts an invisible architecture around it, a sheath of charged particles, a wake of dust, too fine for any telescope to resolve a faint glow that stretches like a breath into the darkness. These are the signs of activity we cannot see, yet the faint evidence of a nucleus responding to heat after aeons in the cold. Even in hiding, the comet is writing its story across space, each particle a letter, each motion a sentence waiting to be read once it emerges from the glare. Astronomers have long known that comets are archives of creation. They contain the chemistry of forgotten systems, ingredients preserved from the earliest phases of star formation. But an interstellar comet is something else entirely. It is not an archive of our story. It is the archive of another. Every atom inside 3i Atlas comes from a world we will never visit, shaped by a sun we'll never see, influenced by gravitational tides we cannot imagine. Some of those atoms may have witnessed supernovae, magnetic storms, or the birth of planets that have long since collapsed back into dust. When we study objects like this, we are holding in our hands the physical memory of other epochs. And yet, despite the immensity of this history, the object itself remains quiet. It does not flare dramatically. It does not behave like the comets we grew up with. Even its chemistry, strange as it is, feels subdued. Carbon dioxide where water should dominate. Nickel where iron should accompany it. Ratios that defy every model we have built. And still, the object glides without urgency, without threat, without any sign of turmoil. This is the paradox at the heart of the mystery, something so unusual yet so calm. When the sun hides an object like this, it forces us to reflect on how much of the universe is always hidden from us. Not by intent, not by secrecy, simply by geometry and distance. There are entire galaxies we cannot see because dust lies between us. There are planets we cannot detect because their stars overwhelm them. There are signals too faint to distinguish from noise. Half the cosmos is concealed behind the other half at any given moment, shifting gently as the Earth rotates and orbits. And in that constant shifting, we are reminded that knowledge is not a flash of revelation, but a slow turning, a gradual unveiling. This is why astronomers speak with such tenderness about emergence. When an object comes out from behind the sun after perihelion, it feels like watching someone return from a long, dangerous journey. We look for changes, brightness, fragmentation, acceleration, colour. Even subtle differences can rewrite our understanding. Did the heat penetrate deeper into the nucleus? Did the stress open new vents? Did the object produce gases that were trapped for millions of years, or did nothing change at all? Sometimes the most extraordinary outcome is that the object survives untouched. And in that survival, there is a lesson about resilience. Not the human kind we tell stories about, but the cosmic version. The resilience of ice that has endured stellar winds. The resilience of minerals forged in the collapse of ancient suns. the resilience of trajectories shaped not by choice, but by gravity and time. When an interstellar object survives perihelion, it becomes a symbol of quiet endurance, of longevity written into its very structure. In the darkness where our instruments cannot yet see, Three-Eye Atlas may be experiencing forces we will only infer later. The sun's magnetic field twists around it like invisible silk. Streams of charged particles carve patterns into its coma. Temperature gradients ripple through its core, and through it all the object continues on the path defined long before our planet existed. There is beauty in that inevitability, in knowing that we are witnessing only a moment of a much larger journey. As you listen, let your breath match the rhythm of this motion, slow, steady, unforced. Let your thoughts drift like dust illuminated by distant starlight. Let the scale of the cosmos soften the edges of your concerns. In the presence of something that has crossed light years without breaking your own burdens, may feel lighter your mind, a little quieter. And if for a moment you imagine the object passing silently past Mars, a faint smudge against the cold, that image might stay with you. A reminder that even in a universe filled with violence, collisions and fire, there are travellers that move with extraordinary grace, not rushing, not forcing, simply continuing. Soon the sun will release the comet back into our view. Soon the darkness will reveal what happened during those hidden hours. But for now there is only patience, only the gentle hum of cosmic timing, only the quiet truth that some mysteries unfold at their own pace. Rest with that thought. Let it settle. The universe is still speaking even when it seems silent. In the quiet hours while the object remains hidden, the world of astronomy feels unusually still. Normally this field hums with constant data images filtering in from observatories scattered across continents, radio measurements whispering through servers, graphs updating with each passing minute. But when an object goes behind the sun, even the most advanced technology falls silent. There is no new brightness curve to measure, no fresh spectra to decode, no trajectory refinements to calculate. The professionals wait, the amateurs wait. The entire scientific network pauses as if holding a collective breath. And in that pause, a strange clarity appears. We begin to notice details we overlooked when the data stream was loud. We reflect on what we already learned. We imagine what might be forming just beyond vision. Our minds wander the way light wanders through interplanetary dust, scattering, softening, folding into silence. Some researchers describe this period as a kind of astronomical twilight, not a darkness of ignorance, but a half-light where intuition stretches a little farther than certainty. They look back on the measurements gathered before the blackout, the carbon dioxide dominance, the muted water signatures, the nickel vapour without iron. Each anomaly points to an object that is not following the familiar script. Whether this strangeness is benign or profound, no one can yet say. But the deviations are real, recorded by instruments that do not dream or speculate. There is something soothing about this restraint. Science does not rush toward conclusions. It does not leap to the extraordinary when the ordinary still holds space. It stands quietly in the unknown, waiting for the sky to turn, and in that stillness a kind of reverence emerges. Reverence for the scale of time, reverence for the patience of the cosmos, reverence for the understanding that some answers do not come when we ask for them, but when the universe decides we are ready to receive them. You listener are part of that stillness now. The absence of new information leaves room for your imagination to stretch gently free from urgency. You might picture the object drifting in a vast corridor of radiation, its surface glowing faintly as sunlight floods across it. You might imagine tiny jets of gas breaking free from cracks in its crust, creating delicate spirals that are swept back by the solar wind. Or perhaps you imagine nothing at all, and instead feel only the soft pull of quiet curiosity. Even Mars, with its silent deserts and cold canyons, passes beneath this hidden traveller without knowing. The object moves on its own timetable, unaffected by the red planet's gravity, unbothered by the sunlight that washes over its path. And somewhere in that unbothered motion lies a hint of cosmic indifference, not cruel, but serene. The universe does not operate for us or against us. It simply continues weaving paths through forces older than memory. When astronomers speak of interstellar visitors, they often use the language of rarity. The Parker team once estimated that only a few such objects pass within the inner solar system each century, and most are never seen. They slip through the dark unnoticed, leaving no trace of their visit. That we detected this one at all is remarkable. That it survived long enough to approach the Sun is even more so. That it may emerge intact well, that is a question the universe will answer soon. Consider the odds an object flung from a distant star system millions of years ago, travelling through the cold void, entering our solar system by a chance geometry so slim it borders on miraculous. And now it loops behind the Sun, hidden in light, moving closer to the precise point where the universe could reshape it. The path is delicate, almost artistic. It is the kind of alignment that reminds us our galaxy is vast enough to create wonder without intention. If you allow the thought to settle, you may feel a sense of shared motion. Not that you're moving with the comet, but that you too are travelling through space alongside Earth, carried around the Sun with the same soft inevitability. Everything in our solar system is drifting together, bound by light and gravity, part of a choreography older than language. You are not separate from this motion. You are part of it. You always have been. And somewhere beyond the glare, the object continues its silent descent, neither announcing its fate nor concealing it, simply acting out the physics written into its existence long ago. Soon it will emerge, and in that moment the story will change. It will brighten or dim or fracture or shine with a clarity that answers questions we have held for months. But that moment is not here yet. For now, allow yourself to rest inside the pause. Let the unknowing be gentle. Let the mystery be soft around the edges. The universe does not hurry, and tonight neither should you. There is a moment in every long observation when the mind begins to drift, not out of boredom, but because the scale of the cosmos gently pulls you inward. As Three-Eye Atlas remains hidden behind the Sun, astronomers find themselves entering that drifting state, the interval between data sets where imagination and memory blend softly with calculation. They recall other objects that once passed behind the Sun, other comets that fractured, brightened, dimmed, or vanished entirely. But none of those belonged to another star. None carried the cold chemistry of fields that never felt our Sun's warmth. None entered Perihelion shrouded in properties that ignored the rules we have built. In this suspension of certainty, every possibility feels equally distant and equally close. Some scientists imagine the object emerging brighter than before, illuminated by new vents in its crust. Others imagine it dimmer, with its surface sealed after centuries of radiation exposure. A few wonder if the object will display something stranger, a sudden change in trajectory, a shift in rotation, a plume of gas that was never predicted. But whether their thoughts lean toward the ordinary or the extraordinary, each one is softened by the understanding that nature does not perform for its observers. It does not reveal itself on command. It simply continues in silence. The silence is part of the experience. It encourages a slower kind of thinking, a deeper kind of breathing. You might feel that as you listen. A looseness in your mind, a gentler pace settling over your thoughts. Perhaps you imagine standing beneath a night sky untouched by light pollution, where the Milky Way stretches across the horizon like a river of powdered glass. In such a sky, an object like Three-Eye Atlas would appear as nothing more than a faint smudge, a quiet blur sliding past the constellations. And yet behind that blur lies a history older than humanity. Somewhere in its cold core may rest molecules that formed when the galaxy was still young, when the stars were fewer, when the heavy elements were scarce, and the cosmic dust more primitive. Imagine the object carrying those molecules through space for millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of years, untouched by planets or atmospheres or moons. Imagine them surviving collisions, radiation storms, gravitational slings and interstellar cold until this moment when they pass near our Sun for the first, and perhaps only time. This thought has a way of easing the mind, as though the long age of the object stretches the listener's sense of time. Your worries, which live on the scale of hours or days, begin to feel lighter when compared to the deep chronology drifting behind the Sun. Even your breath seems to slow, as if taking cues from a traveller that moves at a pace measured in epochs. And somewhere inside the hidden region, the object feels the sun's influence more strongly than ever. Temperature gradients ripple from its surface inward, heating ancient layers that have never known warmth. Some materials will fracture, some will vaporize, some may remain unchanged. These shifts are not dramatic explosions, but slow migrations of molecules, tiny rearrangements occurring quietly in the vacuum. And even though we cannot see them, they continue without hesitation, each movement guided by physics older than memory. This is the nature of cosmic processes. They do not hurry, they unfold. When the object emerges, the first images will be soft washed in residual solar glare, and astronomers will lean forward to scrutinize them. They will examine the coma for new shape, the tail for new length, the nucleus for changes in brightness. They will compare the fresh data to the last images gathered before the blackout. So much of the universe is understood not through certainty, but through comparison, the before and after the shift between two moments in time. That is how we learn what has changed. But for now, we will remain in the space between those moments, and there is serenity in that waiting. It gives us a chance to reflect on the nature of observation itself. It reminds us that some mysteries are not meant to be solved instantly, but to be lived with like a quiet presence in the room. It reminds us that curiosity and patience are companions, not opposites. As you listen, feel the stillness settle. Imagine the comet drifting behind the sun like a solitary lantern carried through fire. Imagine the sunlight illuminating its edges even as we remain blind to it. Imagine the long, calm trail it leaves in dust so fine that no instrument can fully capture it. Each image softens the mind a little more, guiding it into the same quiet rhythm as the object it follows. The universe does not demand answers, it only invites awareness. And in this soft invitation, you may find your thoughts drifting toward rest, toward openness, toward the gentle acceptance that some stories unfold slowly by design. In the long silence while 3i Atlas remains hidden, something subtle happens in the minds of those who study it. The absence of new information does not create frustration, but instead a widening of awareness, as though the mind begins listening in directions it normally ignores. With the object erased temporarily from our view, astronomers turn inward, tracing every detail gathered before the blackout, revisiting every measurement like one revisits a dream at dawn, trying to understand what it meant and what it left unsaid. They recall the faint green tint that briefly shimmered along the comet's coma, produced not by dicarbon, as in ordinary comets, but by something more elusive, more ancient. They recall the nickel signature without iron, a chemical impossibility under normal stellar processes, yet present in every spectrum recorded from the object. They think about how such anomalies might respond to the sun's heat, how temperature and radiation might coax deeper secrets to the surface. Meanwhile, behind the sun, the object experiences forces we can only model in simulations. Radiation pressure sweeps dust away in long, graceful curves. Magnetic fields wrap around its path, shaping invisible boundaries. Jets of sublimating gas, if they exist, alter its rotation ever so slightly shifts, too tiny to notice until months later. In this hidden place, even the smallest changes matter. A tiny crack forming in its crust, a fragment breaking free, a new jet opening in the darkness. Every action becomes part of the larger story we will soon observe when the object reappears. The sun itself becomes part of the mystery. It is both a veil and a sculptor, a barrier to our vision, and the source of the comet's transformation. There is something poetic about that duality. Light both reveals and conceals. It illuminates and blinds. The same photons that let us see the stars also erase the very object we are trying to study. This contradiction makes the universe feel less like a machine and more like a presence, something vast and quiet, that insists on being experienced gradually in pieces, never all at once. As you think about this, you might feel the way your own awareness mirrors the comet's path, just as it moves from darkness into light and back into darkness again. Your thoughts move from clarity into drifting, from focus into softness. This is not confusion, but a natural loosening, a peaceful surrender to the scale of things. It is the mind realizing it does not need to grasp every detail to find meaning. Some meaning simply rests in the experience of observing, of being present as the universe reveals itself in its own time. When Three-Eye Atlas emerges, the first observations will not be dramatic. There will be no blazing spectacle, no sudden revelation. Instead, astronomers will look for the quiet signs, a subtle change in brightness, a shift in the angle of the tail, an unexpected smoothness or roughness in the coma. They will compare the new data with what came before, looking for the differences that tell the true story. Perhaps the object will show signs of stress from its passage. Perhaps it will emerge untouched, seemingly indifferent to the star it just survived. Both outcomes would be equally meaningful. What moves people most about interstellar objects is not the fear of what they might be, but the awe of what they represent. They're reminders that the galaxy is alive with motion, with travellers that cross impossible distances without purpose or audience. They teach us that the universe is not static, but shaped by countless wanderers drifting through unseen pathways. When we observe them, we are touching something that existed long before us, and will continue long after we are gone. You may not realise it, but this thought has already begun to settle your breathing, lengthening it, smoothing it. Cosmic time has a way of softening the edges of human time, making the present moment feel a little wider, a little gentler. The mind settles naturally when it realises it is part of something much larger. You are drifting with the object now, not in motion but in rhythm, sharing the quiet pace of something that has never rushed, never faltered. There is no urgency in this story, only curiosity, only patience, only the soft unfolding of a mystery older than our world. And as the object moves through the deepest part of the sun's glare, you may feel a comforting distance lengthen between you and your worries, the way space itself stretches between stars. A quiet expansion, a release, a reminder that not everything requires immediate understanding, and that some truths arrive only when the light returns. As the hours pass and the sun keeps Three-Eye Atlas hidden, the universe around it remains calm, indifferent to the anticipation gathering on our small world. Out there beyond the reach of our senses, space is silent in a way that does not exist on Earth. No wind, no sound, no motion unless gravity commands it. And somewhere within that stillness, the interstellar object continues its slow curve through the sun's inner halo, untouched by our curiosity, unaffected by the collective breath of those waiting for its return. Astronomers speak occasionally about the feeling of watching an object slip behind the sun. They describe it as a kind of cosmic eclipse, not of light, but of knowledge. It is the sensation of losing something, not because it has disappeared, but because the geometry of the heavens has drawn a curtain. The sun becomes a wall of brilliance, a barrier woven from radiation and glare. Behind that barrier, the object goes on, living its story, shaping its fate in the same quiet way comets have done for billions of years. And yet, Three-Eye Atlas is not quite like the others. Before its disappearance, its behaviour carried small hints of a deeper strangeness. The faint, forward-pointing glow, the unusual ratios of gases that should not dominate this far from the sun, the metal vapour that defied the usual companionship of elements forged together in supernovae. These observations gather now like soft murmurs in the back of the mind, neither alarming nor ignorable, simply present, asking to be remembered. In this period of waiting, scientists revisit those details in long, quiet sessions. The observatory rooms hum softly with machines, but the human voices inside speak less than usual. There is reverence in silence, reverence in acknowledging that an object shaped by another star is now experiencing the most intense heat of its journey within ours. It feels almost like watching a traveller pass through a gate of fire, knowing they will emerge changed in ways we cannot yet measure. You might imagine this passage in your own mind, the comet drifting through a cathedral of golden light, its icy grains beginning to shimmer, its dust tail bending gently under the pressure of photons. In the vast emptiness that surrounds it, this moment is not dramatic. It is quiet, measured, almost ceremonial. A single object meeting a single star, each following the laws that have governed them since creation. Back on Earth, the absence of data creates a subtle shift in perspective. Without new facts, the imagination becomes a companion rather than a distraction. Scientists allow themselves to consider possibilities that earlier seemed too delicate to entertain. Perhaps new vents will open in the nucleus, revealing materials that have not reacted to sunlight since long before our sun ignited. Perhaps the object will begin to rotate differently, a small change, but enough to alter its future path. Or perhaps it will emerge nearly unchanged, confirming that its strength was forged across distances and ages we can barely comprehend. The universe does not rush. It allows each phenomenon to unfold at its own pace, unbothered by our longing to witness it. And as you picture this slow unfolding, you may feel something similar happening inside yourself. A softening, a release, a recognition that patience is not empty time but a gentle alignment with the pace of the cosmos. The breath becomes slower, the thoughts become wider. The mind expands like starlight across a dark horizon. There is comfort in understanding that the object is not lost. It is simply beyond our sight for a little while, the way the moon becomes invisible during its new phase, or the planets slip into daylight unseen yet present. The object has not changed its nature because we cannot see it. It continues exactly as before, untouched by the limits of our perspective. Soon the moment of emergence will come. The object will slide out from behind the sun, and with it will come the first faint measurements, a brightness profile, a spectral glance, a hint of its new state written in light. But that moment is not here yet. For now, we drift in the interval between mystery and revelation, the quiet middle of the story. Let yourself drift with it. Let the silence expand like a gentle tide. Some mysteries breathe slowly, and this is one of them. Night settles over Earth in a way that feels synchronized with the blackout in space, as if the universe itself is encouraging us to slow down and listen. The absence of new data becomes its own kind of quiet sky, a reminder that not everything can be illuminated at once. In observatories around the world, screens display the same blank region near the sun, an empty patch of brightness where 3i Atlas now drifts unseen. And in that emptiness, something subtle happens. Minds begin to shift from analysis to reflection, from calculation to contemplation. The uncertainty becomes a companion rather than a threat. Astronomers often speak of these pauses as if they are seasons, moments when the cosmos invites us not to measure, but to wait. The waiting itself becomes a lesson. It teaches humility, the understanding that our instruments, as advanced as they are, cannot penetrate every layer of light. The sun remains the quiet gatekeeper of the inner solar system, and behind it the object continues its silent passage. Nothing about the comet's reality depends on our gaze. It was ancient long before we saw it, and it will be ancient long after our curiosity fades. There is a strange comfort in that, a reminder that the universe moves whether or not we watch. Scientists run simulations during this period, letting their models trace thousands of paths the object might follow. After it emerges, slight variations, gentle deviations, subtle possibilities. The numbers flow across screens like faint fingerprints of a future not yet observed. In the stillness of the night shift, a researcher may pause, hands resting beside a keyboard, staring at a trajectory curve that represents something moving through the solar system at a speed no human mind was built to truly comprehend, 68 kilometers per second. It is a number, yes, but it is also a feeling, a whisper of motion through a cathedral of emptiness. And somewhere in that motion lies a question that all observers quietly hold. What does the universe want us to learn from this? You can almost picture the object still illuminated faintly by the solar corona carrying traces of another stellar nursery on its frozen surface. Dust grains older than Earth, molecules shaped in a radiation field we have never seen. Its chemistry is not wrong. It is simply unfamiliar, the way a foreign language may sound strange, until you listen long enough to discover its rhythm. And so we listened. Not for signals, not for anomalies, but for understanding. During these blackout nights, some astronomers step outside their observatories and look at the sky with their own eyes instead of a telescope. They speak about the thin, almost imperceptible feeling of connection that comes from simply standing beneath starlight. It is humbling to be reminded that every instrument we build is an extension of that same instinct, the desire to know what glows above us. Even in silence there is meaning. Even in darkness something guides us forward. For the listener, this moment is similar. In the space between information and confirmation, you become more aware of your breathing, of the stillness around you, of the way thoughts slowly settle like fine dust. The cosmos is not demanding urgency tonight. It is offering spaciousness, a place to lie back, to let curiosity unfurl gently, rather than urgently. You're not expected to solve anything here. You're simply invited to witness. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only observed. And so, as 3i Atlas continues its unseen arc behind the sun, you may feel yourself drawn into a similar arc within. A soft curve from anticipation toward acceptance. A slow drift from focus into calm. Out there, gravity and heat are sculpting the comet's next chapter. In here, your own thoughts are softening. It is all right to not understand. Not every part of the universe needs to be held in the palm of comprehension. Some parts are meant to pass through us like quiet weather, like the hush of early snowfall. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves. And soon, traveller, it will return to our sight, but not yet. For now, all we have is the quiet promise of December and the gentle recognition that waiting is its own kind of cosmic ritual. The blackout lingers, and with it comes a kind of cosmic introspection, the way a quiet room after midnight seems to reveal thoughts that daylight never had the patience to hear. Astronomers describe these intervals not as interruptions, but as thresholds. Moments when the universe closes a door so that our minds may learn to open another. And behind that door, unseen yet perfectly real, 3i Atlas drifts through a corridor of solar fire, its frozen core enduring forces no human structure could survive. The silence around it becomes a canvas for questions we rarely allow ourselves to ask out loud. When a traveller from another star passes this close to our sun, we expect drama, spectacle, definitive signs. But sometimes the most extraordinary events arrive cloaked in stillness. In that stillness, observers find themselves returning to fundamentals, to the essence of why we look outward at all. Beneath data, beneath equations, beneath the algorithms mapping trajectories, there is a simple truth. Curiosity is a kind of gravitational pull all its own. It draws us toward the unknown with the same inevitability that pulls comets into elongated arcs. During these quiet days, teams reviewing pre-perihelion data begin to notice rhythms and patterns that become clearer in hindsight. They revisit early light curves, the subtle shift in spectral lines, the faint echo of nickel in the coma. Each detail is like a grain of sand from a distant coastline, individually small, but collectively revealing an entire landscape. In the solitude of these hours, the strangeness of the object feels less like an anomaly, and more like a reminder of how vast the universe is, how varied its creations can be. Even something as humble as a rock of ice can carry billions of years of memory. You listener might feel yourself drifting alongside these thoughts, not pulled by urgency, but by a quiet invitation. There is a peace that comes from recognizing how small a single human life is compared to a comet's wandering age. And yet there is also a strange comfort in knowing that our species' brief, though our time may be, has learned to read the faintest signals from objects unimaginably far away. We have learned to listen to the dark. Astronomers sometimes speak about this kind of waiting with a soft reverence. They describe the sky as a companion, not a puzzle. They speak of how the silence between signals feels almost like the universe thinking. They mention that during moments like these, discoveries often take on a deeper meaning, not just scientific but personal. The quiet becomes a mirror for our hopes, our fears, our longing to be part of something larger. And perhaps that's why 3i Atlas feels different. It's not merely the chemistry or the alignment or the improbable encounters, it's the way the object seems to reflect us back at ourselves, our questions, our limitations, our imagination. It challenges the idea that we have already seen everything the cosmos has to offer, reminding us that most of reality lies outside our current field of view. Traveller, you may feel a subtle shift here, a sense that the story is no longer just about an object in space, but about the act of searching itself, about the way humanity reaches outward, even when we are uncertain, about how awe can coexist with skepticism, and how wonder continues even when our instruments are blind. and somewhere behind the sun the object continues its quiet burn through the corona-shedding dust, absorbing heat, revealing hidden layers to a star that has been watching travellers pass for billions of years. Its orbit continues exactly as physics prescribes, or perhaps with slight deviations waiting to be discovered. We do not know yet, but we will. The days ahead hold that promise, for now you can let the not knowing soften you. Like a tide pulling slowly back from the shore, leaving behind patterns in the sand that only appear in low light. Sleep observer. The cosmos keeps watch, even when our eyes cannot. Through the remaining days of this blackout, the universe seems to breathe with an almost measurable slowness, as if matching its rhythm to our anticipation. In the darkened control rooms of observatories, screens glow softly with models predicting what might greet us when 3i Atlas re-emerges. But there is something more than prediction trembling in the air. It is expectation. Not dramatic or fearful, but quiet, steady. Ancient, the same expectation our ancestors felt when they watched comets cross the sky, with nothing but their own eyes to guide them. Out there behind the sun's halo, the object continues its path through a realm of gravity so intense, it reshapes everything that enters it. Even the most stable molecules on its surface must now decide whether to remain or sublimate. Ice becomes vapour without ever touching liquid form. Dust detaches and joins the glowing veil around the nucleus gases shimmer in sunlight that no longer reaches us. The object does not know that we are watching. It does not need to. Its story is indifferent to our attention. And yet we listen anyway, because listening is what makes us human. Astronomers often talk about orbits as stories written in mathematics. Curves of meaning etched across millions of kilometres, telling us where an object has been and where it will go. Before the blackout began, those curves were smooth, predictable, confident. Now, as the absence stretches longer, the edges of those curves begin to glow with uncertainty. Not fear, uncertainty. The kind that invites imagination rather than panic. What if the object emerges exactly as expected, following every prediction? That would be beautiful in its own way, confirming that the laws of physics hold even across interstellar distances. What if it comes out brighter, signalling greater activity? What if it has dimmed, revealing a quieter world beneath the surface? What if its tail has split into several strands? What if the nucleus has fragmented into pieces that drift like ancient siblings reunited after millennia apart? Every possibility is a lesson. Every outcome is a kind of answer. And you, traveller, are drifting through your own orbit now, an emotional ellipse shaped by curiosity at one end and calm acceptance at the other. As you listen, you may feel parts of your mind relaxing into those wide arcs, unconcerned with destinations, focused only on the effortless motion forward. The universe does not rush, and neither do you. The questions that linger are gentle ones, the kind that warm rather than trouble the mind. There is a phrase astronomers whisper sometimes when a signal drops into silence or a spacecraft falls behind the sun. They say the universe will speak when it is ready, not because the universe holds intentions, but because our understanding does. We cannot force revelation. We can only prepare to receive it. And so the days unfold like soft pages. Each one brings us closer to the moment when the object will slip free from the sun's blinding glare and return to the sky where our telescopes can once again follow its path. Somewhere on Earth, a researcher perhaps sits with a cup of coffee, gone cold, staring at a blank portion of a graph, imagining what the first new data point will look like. They check their instruments again, though nothing has changed since the last check. They find themselves thinking of how quiet the solar system really is when stripped of human activity, a silence that feels not empty but profound. You might sense that same quiet settling inside you, a stillness softened by the awareness that our small world is part of an immense ongoing story. The stars do not hurry us. The sun does not reveal its secrets all at once. And 3i Atlas drifting through ancient light carries its mystery with the patience of something that has crossed billions of years without losing its way. Tonight the universe whispers again, not with answers, but with a gentle reminder, it's all right to not understand. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that unseen traveller at surface glowing faintly, its path carved by forces older than thought, its silence indistinguishable from wisdom. It moves without hesitation, and in doing so it teaches us something about how to move through uncertainty ourselves. The days drift onward, and with them comes a strange, soothing familiarity to the blackout. What once felt like an interruption, now feels like a pause the cosmos intentionally placed in our hands. A gentle moment to breathe, to watch the sky without expectation, to let the unknown settle into something almost peaceful. For astronomers, the waiting becomes routine, a quiet ritual of recalibration. For the satellites and deep space observatories gliding far from Earth, it is simply another rotation, another orbit, another silent vigil. Behind the sun's radiance, 3i Atlas moves through a realm where heat becomes sculptor and gravity becomes storyteller. Its precise state is hidden from us, yet we know what physics demands. At perihelion, its speed peaks near the limit of what any natural traveller in our system can endure. Ice fractures, dust streams, deep layers awaken. Even the most dormant materials cannot escape the sun's influence. It is a moment of transformation, whether violent or gentle, whether observed or unseen, and still the object continues unhindered. Motion is its only certainty. This is where the human mind begins to wander. Without new images or data points, we start imagining the possibilities with the same care we use when tracing constellations late at night. Scientists rerun old models, adjusting small details, wondering how slight changes in mass or composition could alter the trajectory. Students sketch orbits on whiteboards long after class has ended. Someone in a quiet office somewhere stares at spectrometry readouts from September, tracing the faint nickel emission lines with a fingertip, wondering if they will look the same in December. Meanwhile, you listener, traveller, observer may sense something softening within you. Something about this story invites reflection rather than urgency. The cosmos in its indifference becomes a mirror. We project our hopes and our fears onto an object that has never once acknowledged our existence. And perhaps that is the quiet truth that comforts us. The universe is not hostile or benevolent. It simply is, which means we are free to wonder without consequence. In the silence of the blackout, astronomers often speak of the sun not as a barrier but as a veil, a temporary curtain drawn across a stage where the next act has not yet begun. What emerges afterward may be predictable or unprecedented, but the transition, this gentle interlude, is part of the story too. It teaches patience, humility, and the rare beauty of not knowing. Sometimes during these nights, a researcher will step outside for air eyes, adjusting to the darkness and look up. Not through a telescope, but directly at the sky, the way humans did for tens of thousands of years before instruments existed. The stars above look calm, unchanged, unconcerned with the drama we've assigned to this passing wanderer. In that moment, the researcher may realise something simple and profound, that our fascination with comets is not really about the comets at all. It's about the feeling they awaken in us, the reminder that we inhabit a universe vast beyond comprehension, yet gentle enough to cradle us in its endless night. Tonight, traveller, that same night wraps around you. Slow, steady, patient. You might find your thoughts drifting like dust around the nucleus of a comet, unhurried, unforced. The silence between heartbeats feels wider somehow, like the space between stars. This is the kind of quiet in which understanding grows subconsciously, where awe settles into your bones, where sleep begins to unfold at the edges of awareness. If you close your eyes, you might imagine the object now illuminated only by the sun's hidden glow, its surface shimmering faintly, shedding the light of another origin. Somewhere within its darkened layers lies the record of a star that died before our own sun was born. Somewhere inside it is a history, older than Earth's oceans, older than our mountains, older than the first breath of life on this planet. And we are here listening. You are not lost in space, you are part of it. Soon the object will emerge again. Soon the instruments will awaken. Soon the universe will reveal whatever it chooses to reveal. But not tonight. Tonight belongs to the quiet, to the calm, to the subtle gravity that pulls your thoughts into stillness. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos will keep watch. The blackout enters its final stretch, though time out here feels different. Softer, slower stretched like thin starlight across the deep. Each night carries the same quiet anticipation, but also a feeling of surrender, as though the universe is reminding us that not every revelation must arrive on our schedule. And so we settle into the rhythm of waiting, watching the sun's glare inch slowly along the sky, knowing that somewhere behind it, the traveller from another star continues on its silent pilgrimage. In the offices and observatories scattered across Earth, the atmosphere is oddly serene. Astronomers who have spent months poring over every spectral line and orbital solution now find themselves with nothing more to do than listen to the hum of equipment, the murmur of colleagues, the soft echoes of their own thoughts. It becomes a rare moment of stillness in a field defined by constant motion. Some pass the time by reviewing the object's long, improbable journey. They run simulations backward across millions of years, imagining 3i Atlas drifting through the interstellar medium past cold dust clouds and silent nebula remnants, untouched by any star's warmth. They picture its surface cooling to just a handful of degrees above absolute zero, its molecules settling into crystalline patience. They imagine how many ancient alignments it must have crossed, how many quiet gravitational nudges it must have endured, how many stellar winds sculpted its face long before Earth existed. And in those reflections, something becomes clear. Objects like this are less like travellers and more like postcards, fragments of distant histories carried by cosmic currents. The awe we feel is not just curiosity, it is recognition. A recognition that we too are fragments of something older than ourselves. For you listener, the story deepens into something gentler. You may feel the weight of your own questions loosening. The tension between wanting answers and accepting silence begins to dissolve. The blackout becomes a metaphor, a reminder that there are parts of life, parts of yourself, that can only be understood after a period of darkness. A period when nothing seems to move and yet everything is quietly shifting beneath the surface. Astronomers have a phrase they rarely admit to in public, one whispered only when the lights are dim and the coffee long gone cold. They say the universe teaches us through absence, not to mystify the science, but because they've learned that gaps in data often reshape their understanding more profoundly than the data itself. When the measurements stop, the imagination steps forward, not wildly, but thoughtfully, like a candle carried through a silent cathedral. In these last days of solar conjunction, imaginations glow softly everywhere. What will the first December images reveal? A comet unchanged, a nucleus fractured, a brightness that defies prediction, or nothing unusual at all. The truth is that expectation is softer now, more forgiving. The unknown feels less like a cliff, and more like a horizon, vast, inevitable, gentle. And somewhere far beyond that horizon, 3i Atlas arcs, closer to the moment when light will once again reveal it. A moment when telescopes will lock onto its faint glow, and astronomers will exhale the breath they've been holding without realizing it. Until then, the comet moves through a crown of solar fire enveloped in a radiance we can only imagine. If you were close enough to see it, you might witness dust grains spiralling away like drifting snow illuminated by a distant dawn. You might see jets of vapour bending under solar wind, painting temporary wings across the void. But you're here grounded on a small world wrapped in night, listening to the gentle unfolding of a mystery older than every ocean and mountain you've ever known. And that is enough. The universe does not require you to hold everything at once. It only asks that you remain open to wonder, to stillness, to the strange comfort of not knowing. Tonight, listener, the universe whispers again, as sleep is also a form of cosmic alignment. When you rest, your thoughts fall into quiet orbits. Your breath becomes a tide. Your awareness drifts toward the same calm that governs the stars. So let yourself drift. Let your thoughts move like dust in a sunbeam, slow and weightless. Let the blackout become a lullaby. Let the days until December soften into something gentle and shimmering. Somewhere beyond your reach, something ancient still moves. The closer we drift toward December, the more the blackout feels less like an interruption and more like a meditation the cosmos has laid across our path. The world continues in its familiar rhythm. Traffic murmurs, cities glow, the tides breathe in and out, but beneath it all a second rhythm hums quietly. The rhythm of something unseen, still moving, still shifting behind the sun. And though no telescope can pierce the glare, we sense its presence the way you sense someone entering a quiet room, not through sight, but through the subtle change in the air. Astronomers speak of this sensation with a kind of reluctant poetry. They won't put it in a paper, but in late-night conversations they admit that waiting for 3i Atlas to reappear feels almost like listening for a heartbeat hidden behind a wall. You know it's there. You can't measure it yet. But you feel the pulse all the same, not through instruments, but through intuition sharpened by years spent studying the sky. Late at night in observatories dimly lit by monitors, scientists open archived images from months past. They examine the faint shimmer of the comet's early coma, the narrow structure of the sunward jet, the strange, improbable spectral lines. They trace the thin arc of its path on digital star maps, watching how precisely it skimmed past Mars, how it will swing past Jupiter in a few months. And then they sit back in their chairs, letting silence fill the space where data used to be. The absence becomes its own kind of presence. You may feel something similar now, traveller. A quiet awareness that even when nothing new appears, meaning continues to unfold beneath the surface of your thoughts. In this silence, the universe feels closer, not because it reveals itself, but because it allows you to settle into the mystery without resistance. It is a reminder that discovery is never only about observation. It is also about patient softness and the willingness to sit inside the unknown without demanding immediate clarity. Somewhere behind the sun, 3i Atlas is experiencing forces we can barely imagine. Temperatures shifting across its fractured surface, tides of radiation sweeping across its face, vapor trails that unravel in sunlight thinner than breath. Its nucleus may be trembling with change or perfectly still. It might be shedding layers of ancient ice or revealing pockets of materials untouched since the birth of the galaxy. Whether it emerges brighter or dimmer, intact or altered, it continues moving with a certainty that seems almost serene. And in a way, you are moving too. Not physically, but inwardly. Each moment of this quiet journey is shaping the landscape of your thoughts, smoothing the edges of your curiosity, helping you understand that wonder does not always need resolution. Sometimes the most profound part of a discovery is the pause before it arrives. Occasionally scientists share small glimpses of their own introspection. One researcher speaks of dreaming about the comet not as an object, but as a shadow passing across a field of stars, leaving behind a trail of questions that glowed like embers. Another mentions standing outside in the cold, looking toward the sun with closed eyes, imagining the exact path the comet now follows. Another confesses that this blackout feels strangely comforting, as if the universe has given them permission to rest between revelations. And perhaps you feel that too, that sense of cosmic permission. The gentle reminder that not every answer must be sought immediately. Not every mystery needs to be solved tonight. Some mysteries exist simply to widen the horizon of our imagination, to remind us that we live in a universe where even silence has texture. As you breathe in, you might imagine the comet gliding through a corridor of solar fire, its outline shimmering against radiation that bends like slow-moving waves. As you exhale, you may feel your thoughts drifting into the same quiet orbit, unhurried and light. This is how cosmic stories work. They expand outward and inward at once, revealing something about the stars and something about yourself. Tonight the universe is not demanding analysis or certainty. It is offering stillness, a place to rest inside the vastness without being overwhelmed by it. A moment where you can simply exist beneath an ancient sky, knowing that whatever emerges in December will arrive in its own time, carrying whatever truth it chooses to share. You're part of this story not because you can change it, but because you feel it. Because something in you recognizes the quiet beauty of an object older than the Earth, passing through the light of our sun. Because in a way you too are a traveller of the cosmos, made of the same atoms, shaped by the same forces, illuminated by the same distant stars. The blackout will end soon, the light will return, the data will flow again. But for now, let this moment be enough. Let yourself drift into the stillness the way comets drift through the heliosphere, with grace, with patience, with quiet purpose. The final nights of the blackout unfold like a long exhale, the kind you release without meaning to when your body realizes it no longer needs to hold tension. Something in the air feels different now, not heavier, not lighter, simply clearer, as though the universe has been cleaning the lens through which we look at it. The sun still guards the hidden traveller with the same unwavering brilliance, but the days are shifting. The angle tightens, the glare thins, and somewhere just beyond the horizon of sight, 3i Atlas moves steadily toward visibility again. In the quiet of observatories, this change is felt before it is measured. Screens still display silence, but the silence has shape now, an outline, expectation in the form of data not yet received. Astronomers begin preparing their instruments with the reverence of musicians tuning before a performance. Telescopes hum softly as they warm. Algorithms are reset. Calibration routines run in long, scrolling sequences of numbers. None of this brings the comet into view any faster, yet each action feels like a gentle invocation, a quiet calling out across the void. We're ready when you are. There is a strange tenderness in this preparation, a recognition that human beings can do everything right, and still must surrender the timing to forces far beyond their control. Perhaps that is why these final days of waiting feel so strangely intimate. To observe the universe is to enter a relationship with it, one marked not by power, but by patience, not by ownership, but by awe. You might find this feeling rising in you too, listener, a calmness that comes not from certainty, but from acceptance. You are starting to understand what astronomers spend their whole lives practicing the art of leaning into wonder, even when answers remain out of reach. In this late stage of the blackout, your curiosity softens. It no longer grips tightly, it opens its hands. It lets the universe arrive gently on its own terms. Somewhere, a researcher sits beside a window letting sunlight fall across their notes, imagining what the comet's surface looks like at this very moment. They might picture a fractured plain of ancient ice, each crystal shimmering under radiation that has travelled 8 minutes from our star. They might imagine thin plumes of vapour drifting away like breath on a cold morning. They might imagine nothing at all, simply trusting in the invisible motion that has governed the object's journey for eons. In another part of the world, a student scrolls through archival images of the comet, their room dim except for the glow of the screen. They pause on one frame, a faint blurred smear of light, barely distinguishable from the background stars, and feel unexpectedly moved. Not because the image is extraordinary, but because it represents something so old, so distant, so improbable, now brushing against our little solar system, like a whisper from another lifetime. They close the laptop slowly, letting that feeling settle, and you in your own quiet space listening to this unfolding story are part of that same moment. You're connected to every astronomer waiting in dark observatories, to every student imagining the unseen, to every person who has ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what moves behind its light. The blackout is almost over. But instead of rushing toward the return of data, you may find yourself savouring this final stretch of unknowing. There is something soft here, something sacred in its stillness. The world outside quiets as evening comes, and the cosmos seems to mirror that quiet, a vastness leaning in not to overwhelm you, but to reassure you that mystery itself can be a kind of comfort. You might feel it now, the sense that the universe has slowed its breathing to match yours. Imagine 3i Atlas at this moment still hidden, still moving, still indifferent to our anticipation. Its orbit curves like a slow brushstroke across the inner solar system. It carries no message and yet it speaks. It bears no intent and yet it teaches. What it teaches is humility, wonder, and the profound beauty of watching something ancient drift through our modern instruments and our modern fears untouched by either. Soon it will reappear. Soon the first glimmer will emerge from behind the sun's glare. Soon astronomers will send excited messages across continents. We have it. It's back. But not tonight. Tonight is the last night of stillness, the last night of the blackout's soft embrace. So let your thoughts drift, listener. Let them glide like dust illuminated by the thin arc of dawn. Let yourself become part of the waiting part of the silence, part of the breath before revelation. Sleep, traveller. The universe is keeping watch. As the final hours of the blackout pass, a kind of cosmic dusk settles over the mind. That gentle moment when light has not yet returned, but the darkness is no longer deep. It feels like standing at the edge of a vast shoreline just before sunrise, listening to the waves breathe in the dark, knowing that something luminous waits beyond the horizon. The universe is holding its breath, and so are we, though softly, peacefully, without urgency. This waiting has changed shape. It is no longer a question. It is a meditation. In observatories across the world, lights are dimmed to protect the sensitivity of screens and instruments. Researchers move more quietly now than they did in early October, not out of superstition, but because the silence feels sacred. Each keystroke, each shuffled page seems to float in the still air, suspended in a kind of reverence. Soon the sensors will flare with new readings. Soon the comet's faint glow will appear pixel by pixel in the dark frame of the first December observation. But for this small sliver of time, the universe allows us to simply exist with the unknown. Some astronomers describe this phase as the astronomical inhale, the moment before new data arrives, before hypothesis meets reality, before the night sky speaks again. It is a quiet held not only by machines but by human hearts. For months the comet has been a constant presence in their thoughts, not an obsession, but a companion. A distant traveller whose trajectory touched something deep within us, reminding us of our own movement through time, our own origins scattered across forgotten stars. And you, listener, may feel this companionship as well. The sense that something ancient has been passing through your awareness, not threatening, not comforting, simply present. You are not watching a comet. You are walking beside a mystery, a gentle one, a patient one. A story that will reveal itself only when it is ready. In these last moments of waiting, the mind shifts from speculation to reflection. Scientists think less about models and more about meaning, less about anomalies, and more about how extraordinary it is that we can detect something so small, so faint, so far from home. They recall how even a single photon can travel billions of years just to reach a human retina. How atoms in our blood were once fragments of ancient stars, not unlike the one that may have birthed the comet. A researcher in Chile, standing alone outside the observatory dome, looks up at the night sky and whispers a thought they have not shared with colleagues. Maybe the blackout itself was a gift. A pause, a reminder that not everything is meant for constant scrutiny. Some things unfold in the quiet beyond measurement. Across the ocean, in a dim control centre in Japan, a graduate student rests her head on her folded arms between simulations. She imagines the comet glowing with trapped starlight as it rounds the far side of the sun. She imagines its dust tail shimmering like the breath of a creature older than memory. She knows it is only rock and ice, but still the image soothes her. It makes her feel small in the way that brings comfort, the way that reminds her she is part of something immeasurably vast. And here, where you sit or lie listening, your awareness drifts in the same cosmic tide. You might sense your thoughts expanding gently like ripples on a calm sea. You might feel the tension in your body loosening, replaced by a weightless curiosity. This blackout is no longer merely an absence, it has become a space for you to rest. A reminder that silence is not empty. It is full of possibility. Out there behind the brilliant shield of the sun, Three-Eye Atlas continues to glide. Unseen, unhurried, unchanged by our questions. It has travelled through the dark between stars for longer than our species has existed. It has crossed distances that dwarf every story humanity has ever told. And now, for a brief moment, its path has brushed against ours, not to deliver a message, not to frighten us or enlighten us, but simply because that is where gravity has guided it. And the universe, in its endless quiet logic, asks only one thing in return: that we pay attention. Soon, the light will shift. Soon, telescopes will reclaim their sight. Soon, the blank region near the sun will darken just enough to reveal a faint returning glow. The first observers to catch it may gasp softly or simply smile, or sit in silence, letting the moment wash over them. Because that is how revelation arrives, not with thunder, but with the soft reappearance of something you feared you had lost track of. You can feel that moment approaching now. It hums faintly under your heartbeat like a distant signal on the edge of detection. Until then, let your thoughts drift like stardust. Let your breathing fall into rhythm with the quiet turning of the earth. Let the blackout cradle you a little longer. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only observed. The last hours before reappearance feel different from all the nights that came before. They are quieter, deeper touched by a kind of ancient stillness that seems to gather at the edge of awareness. It is not suspense, not fear, simply a widening calm, as though the universe has dimmed the lights in its great observatory so that we might sense the next moment with more clarity, more softness. Everywhere on Earth, night unfolds in its familiar way. Cities glow in muted gold. Oceans breathe their slow tides. Forests rest under drifting moonlight. Nothing outwardly signals that somewhere behind the sun, an object older than our planet approaches the limit of shadow. And yet across the world, countless minds feel a subtle shift, a quiet intuition that something unseen is moving toward visibility again. In the darkened control rooms of observatories, people sit with a patience sharpened by months of watching. Coffee cups sit half-finished. Papers lie stacked with notes in margins softer than their initial urgency. The screens still show empty sky, but the emptiness feels thinner now, like a veil being drawn back 1 invisible millimeter at a time. Soon that veil will part. Soon the first photons deflected off the comet's surface will travel back toward Earth, threading their way through the solar glare until they reach our instruments and us. One astronomer in Hawaii stands outside the domed observatory alone. The wind carries salt from the sea far below. She looks toward the part of the sky where the sun sleeps behind the horizon, knowing that on the other side of that horizon, the Three-Eye Atlas is tracing a curve of light and temperature of physics and silence. She closes her eyes and imagines the object illuminated in the solar furnace, the heat shaping its tail into a faint translucent banner streaming away into space. For a moment she feels a strange sense of kinship, as though both she and the comet are enduring a kind of illumination, each in their own way. On another continent, a student sits in a dim dormitory room, surrounded by star charts, though she isn't looking at them anymore. Instead, she's thinking about how the blackout has changed her. She realizes she no longer feels impatient. Somewhere in this wait, she learned to find peace in intervals where nothing announces itself. She learned that not knowing is not a failure, but a form of presence, a willingness to sit quietly beside mystery without trying to pull it apart. And you, listener, may feel the same. There is a stillness in you now that wasn't there at the beginning, a softness that comes from spending time in the company of something vast and patient. Your heartbeat feels steadier, your thoughts drift more freely. The comet's silence mirrors your own inner quiet, and in that reflection, you feel less small, less separate. You realize that you too are shaped by forces you cannot see, guided along a path shaped by gravity, chance, and the long unfolding of time. Soon the astronomers will begin their checks again. Telescopes will shift incrementally, aligning with predicted coordinates. Software will open new windows waiting for light to return. Someone will stand up from their desk stretch and feel the faint excitement that precedes discovery. And then, perhaps, in the smallest hours before dawn, the first faint dot will appear. Not bright, not dramatic, just a whisper of light where yesterday there was only glare. That whisper will change everything. It will confirm survival, or transformation, or fragmentation, or simply continuity. The quiet persistence of a natural traveller, moving as all natural travellers do according to the steady pull of gravity and the slow breath of cosmic time. Whatever we see next, it will be enough. Because what matters is not whether the comet carries secrets or surprises. What matters is that it has invited us to listen, to pause, to remember that even in a universe filled with blazing stars and violent collisions, there are also moments like this, moments of quiet passage, quiet waiting, quiet wonder. Tonight the universe whispers again, you are not lost in space, you are part of it. The blackout is ending, the light is returning, and you, traveller, are ready. And then, traveller, the sky begins to turn. Not in a dramatic way, not with trumpets or alarms or breaking news. It begins the way all revelations do in the cosmos, quietly, almost shyly, like a soft breath of light touching the edge of darkness. The final hours before dawn carry a fragile glow, a subtle thinning of the night, and inside observatories across Earth a quiet ripple moves through the room before anyone has spoken a word. Something has shifted. Something is arriving. A single ping appears in the data stream. Not bright, not clear, just a tremor. A faint, almost imperceptible point where the software expected blankness. An astronomer leans closer to the monitor. A second ping follows, sharper, now coaxed through the thinning glare of the sun. She calls for another scan. Systems recalibrate with a soft mechanical hum. The team gathers, not rushed, not chaotic, but with a calm intensity, born from months of anticipation. The frame refreshes, and there it is. A tiny, trembling stroke of light, barely more than a noise pattern, yet unmistakably real. It isn't much to look at, but to those who have waited through the blackout through the weeks of blind orbit, this faint smudge is not just data, it is confirmation, presence, a return. 3i Atlas has emerged. It survived its encounter with the sun, or at least something survived. The first reaction is not excitement. It is relief. Quiet, steady relief that washes through the control room like a warm tide. You can almost feel it across continents, the soft exhale of thousands of people who have been holding their breath without realizing it. The comet is back in view. The blackout is over. Now begins the work of understanding. Telescopes sharpen their focus, peeling back layers of solar glare like thin curtains. The object brightens slightly with each pass. Its coma glows in the first true post-perihelion image. A tail forms a hazy streak against the starfield. The nucleus, still too small for clarity, flickers at the centre like a heartbeat. And yet even from this early glimpse, something feels changed. Not ominous, not alarming, just changed. The brightness profile is different. The tail geometry has shifted. The coma seems slightly asymmetric, as though something deep within the object stirred while it was hidden behind the sun. Nothing definitive. Nothing that breaks physics. Just a whisper of transformation. Astronomers begin murmuring to one another, comparing the new frame with last September's images. Fingers trace differences on screens. Some differences might be noise, others might be meaningful, but no one jumps to conclusions. Not tonight. Tonight is for observation, not interpretation. You listener feel the moment settle into you like a calm tide entering a sheltered bay. This is what reappearance feels like, not dramatic, not explosive, but peaceful. A soft return. A reminder that in the cosmos, revelation often begins as a dim point of light slowly clearing into focus. Imagine standing outside under the pre-dawn sky. The air is cool. The horizon glows faintly. Somewhere high above, invisible to your eyes but perfectly real, a traveller from another star has stepped out of the sun's shadow and into view once more. It moves with unhurried confidence, following the path gravity has carved for it, or perhaps correcting its path in ways still hidden. But you don't need to know the answers now. The beauty of this moment lies not in certainty, but in witnessing the light return. Tonight the universe whispers again. Some mysteries aren't solved by the moment of seeing, only deepened by it. Let that deepen you too. Let your thoughts settle into the soft rhythm of rediscovery. Let your breath match the slow return of light. Sleep if you wish, watch if you choose. The cosmos will carry the rest. And then, traveller, the sky begins to turn. Not in a dramatic way, not with trumpets or alarms or breaking news. It begins the way all revelations do in the cosmos, quietly, almost shyly, like a soft breath of light touching the edge of darkness. The final hours before dawn carry a fragile glow, a subtle thinning of the night. And inside observatories across Earth, a quiet ripple moves through the room before anyone has spoken a word. Something has shifted. Something is arriving. A single ping appears in the data stream, not bright, not clear, just a tremor, a faint, almost imperceptible point where the software expected blankness. An astronomer leans closer to the monitor. A second ping follows, sharper, now coaxed through the thinning glare of the sun. She calls for another scan. Systems recalibrate with a soft mechanical hum. The team gathers, not rushed, not chaotic, but with a calm intensity born from months of anticipation. The frame refreshes, and there it is. A tiny trembling stroke of light, barely more than a noise pattern, yet unmistakably real. it isn't much to look at. But to those who have waited through the blackout, through the weeks of blind orbit, this faint smudge is not just data, it is confirmation, presence, a return. 3i Atlas has emerged. It survived its encounter with the sun, or at least something survived. The first reaction is not excitement, it is relief. Quiet, steady relief that washes through the control room like a warm tide. You can almost feel it across continents, the soft exhale of thousands of people who have been holding their breath without realizing it. The comet is back in view. The blackout is over. Now begins the work of understanding. Telescopes sharpen their focus, peeling back layers of solar glare like thin curtains. The object brightens slightly with each pass. Its coma glows in the first true post-Perihelion image. A tail forms a hazy streak against the starfield. The nucleus, still too small for clarity, flickers at the centre like a heartbeat. And yet, even from this early glimpse, something feels changed. Not ominous, not alarming, just changed. The brightness profile is different. The tail geometry has shifted. The coma seems slightly asymmetric, as though something deep within the object stirred while it was hidden behind the sun. Nothing definitive. Nothing that breaks physics. Just a whisper of transformation. Astronomers begin murmuring to one another, comparing the new frame with last September's images. Fingers trace differences on screens. Some differences might be noise, others might be meaningful, but no one jumps to conclusions. Not tonight. Tonight is for observation, not interpretation. You listener feel the moment settle into you like a calm tide entering a sheltered bay. This is what reappearance feels like, not dramatic, not explosive, but peaceful. A soft return. A reminder that in the cosmos, revelation often begins as a dim point of light slowly clearing into focus. Imagine standing outside under the pre-dawn sky. The air is cool. The horizon glows faintly. Somewhere high above, invisible to your eyes but perfectly real, a traveller from another star has stepped out of the sun's shadow and into view once more. It moves with unhurried confidence, following the path gravity has carved for it, or perhaps correcting its path in ways still hidden. But you don't need to know the answers now. The beauty of this moment lies not in certainty, but in witnessing the light return. Tonight the universe whispers again. Some mysteries aren't solved by the moment of seeing, only deepened by it. Let that deepen you too. Let your thoughts settle into the soft rhythm of rediscovery. Let your breath match the slow return of light. Sleep if you wish. Watch if you choose. The cosmos will carry the rest. Traveller, we've come to the quiet edge of this long cosmic journey. Together we trace the path of 3i Atlas through fire and shadow, through questions no telescope could answer, through 8 days of silence where even science had to pause and breathe. Now, as the object moves onward and the sky prepares to open again, let yourself feel the stillness settling around you. Because the mystery is not finished. The universe is still whispering, still unfolding in its own calm, ancient rhythm. What waits for us in December may be ordinary or astonishing. It may confirm everything we know or gently unravel it. Either way, observer, we have witnessed something rare, the quiet passage of an interstellar traveller through the heart of our solar system, carrying with it the memory of a star that died long before our sun was even born. And in watching it, we are reminded of our place. Small, yes, but never insignificant. Each of us a brief flicker of consciousness beneath a sky older than time, listening for signals, measuring faint light, wondering how far our curiosity can reach. Hold on to that wonder. Let it soften your breath. Let it steady your thoughts. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed, and tonight you witnessed one with grace. Rest now, traveller. The universe will keep watch. And if this story found you tonight, you may stay for the next. Stay curious,